Hi everyone, my name is Lori Allen, and I'm here today to talk to you about Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was an American financier and a convicted sex offender. He would lure young girls into his home and take advantage of them. He would offer them the promises of paying for their schooling, giving them homes, and paying their bills. He would ask the girls to bring their friends over so that he had more young women to do these things too. I'll go into detail about why he is guilty and why the charges were brought against him. The evidence found against Jeffrey Epstein are as follows: interviews of the victims, notes and messages seized from his Manhattan townhome, a raid on his home that provided nude and partially nude photos of young women, and a history of witness tampering, harassment, and other obstructive behaviors. In a book written by Bradley Edwards, the lawyer who represented Epstein's victims, he tells the story about a young woman named Courtney Wild. She was the first victim to come forward and ask him to represent her so that she could tell her story. She began by telling her story saying that a wealthy man named Jeffrey Epstein sexually coerced her at the young age of 14. In this book, Bradley Edwards details the events of the corruption that supports all of the evidence against Jeffrey Epstein. After Courtney came forward, there were more and more women that felt safe to come forward after that. 20 women in all were in this suit against Jeffrey Epstein. Afterwards, more than 100 women came forward saying that they were sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein. In a Netflix documentary about the victims, they go into detail about what this man did to them. He offered to pay them $200 to give him a massage. Little did they know that it would turn into a lot more than that. He would turn it into something sexual without them even understanding what they were getting themselves into. He would take advantage of young girls that had a rough upbringing because they didn't know any better. He would make them think that it was normal behavior for what he was doing to them. Courtney Wild, the one that I mentioned prior, said that, I quote, "My relationship was complex. The longer it went on, the more indebted she felt to him. She did not want to let the man down who became her friend, father figure, employer, and master, someone who always spoke to her politely." This just goes to show how deep this went, that he didn't just have them perform these sexual acts and let them go. He made them have feelings for him and continued the behaviors over years. With all the evidence that was presented, Epstein is absolutely guilty of all the crimes he committed. There is no doubt that he was a pedophile and took advantage of young women. He did things to them that can never be undone, that they have to live with for the rest of their lives. The only thing that I can see as a possible rebuttal is that he was a well-respected businessman, that he had ties to influential people. And some may wonder if these women were just out for financial gain, whether they were just trying to do this to get money from him. However, none of these women received any type of compensation for their cases against him. Before his death, Epstein transferred all of his assets into a trust fund. This made it so that none of the victims would see financial gain. They finally now have set up a victims' compensation fund, but the money is still tied up. So these victims still have not seen any financial gain from what has happened to them. In conclusion, there's now evidence as well that puts Epstein's longtime girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, in prison recently. She's been charged with recruiting, grooming, and sexually abusing girls as well, as young as 14 years old. In an editorial on CNN News, Kara Scannell and Erica Orden mention the charges include enticement and conspiracy to entice minors to travel to engage in illegal sex acts, transportation, and conspiracy to transport minors with intent to engage in criminal sexual activity, and 2 counts perjury. Just goes to show that these people did so much to take advantage of these young girls. It is unheard of that these things continue to happen. I am very glad that these victims came forward to shed light on what happened to them, and that at least they were able to get their voices heard. Unfortunately, they did not get the justice that they were hoping for, because Epstein is now passed. Epstein and Maxwell were guilty of these acts, and I really hope that with Maxwell in prison, that they finally get the justice that they deserve. Thank you.